Ooh, la-di-da, look at the fancy new animated intro. Yes, hi, I'm the Space Quest historian. I have retreated from your planet to the safety of my massive mobile space fortress, so suck it, coronavirus. Right, let's talk about the Space Quest 4 beta. It's actually an interesting story. Back in 1991, there was this cracker group. You know what a cracker group is. It's basically a bunch of guys who acquire software, strip it of its copy protection, if there is any, and then release it onto the internet so people don't have to pay for their games. Back in 1991, there was this group called the Humble Guys, kind of an ironic name for a cracker group, then got their hands on a pre-release beta version of Space Quest 4, and because the cracking scene is so competitive, it's all about who gets the latest games out first. They didn't care if it was bugged up the ass, which it was, or if it was even possible to complete the game, which it isn't. They just released it anyway. And they released it onto BBSs too, you know, the kind you had to phone up and hope your dad didn't notice on the phone bill the next month. And they were able to do this because at the time, the Humble Guys were one of the biggest and most badass cracking groups on the PC, and they had suppliers in store retailers and sometimes even in the software developers themselves. And I can only assume that's how they got a hold of this beta version of Space Quest 4, because as you will see, this is not ready for release at all. I don't think they actually got it from Ken Williams, as it says in the scroll text there. I think that's just a joke, kids, but don't get me wrong. At the time when they did this, they were being what the British would call a right band of assholes. They were taking a game that hadn't even come out yet or had just come out, and they released a buggy, broken mess of a version of it because the cracking scene is really just a fancy dick waving contest, and everyone in it have really tiny dicks. But in retrospect, we should almost be happy that they did, because the version they released actually provides a pretty interesting insight into how Space Quest 4 looked prior to its release. And there are some things in there that got changed or even taken out of the final version, and it's interesting to see Space Quest 4 as a work in progress. So let's take a closer look, shall we? Right, so the first thing we're going to see when we boot the game up is this teleport anywhere box. This version of Space Quest 4 actually has the debug mode enabled, which was taken out of the final version. I'm not going to get too much into that because I'm going to do a separate video on the debugs of the various Space Quest games. Another thing we're going to notice is that the music volume is terrifically loud. Oh, dear fucking God, I'm just going to turn that down. There are some color cycling artifacts in the corners there, but most of the intro is pretty much as you remember it. There are a few lines that have been changed. Let's just skip the credits here. Oh, turns out there are no credits to skip. It just goes straight into the opening text here, which is a little different than the finished version. It says, having worked hard, did he really, to rescue those two ingrates from Andromeda, he decides a pit stop at a little watering hole on Magnetheus is in order. So a little more descriptive. But, and here we can see that the text loses its outline, and for some reason it's green, making it that much harder to read. And this is me frantically trying to find the volume control, but the menus have been disabled for the intro. Another tiny little quirk is that the zoom in, when it goes over the planet, zooms in 3 times. It doesn't just zoom in once, as it does in the final version. Don't worry, I'm not going to be this meticulous with the entire game. I am going to skip bits, but I thought we'd just lean into it. Also because there's a tiny little change in Vohal's dialogue coming up. He's slightly less bombastic than he is in the final version. Yes, we have confirmation of his current position, sir, not master. Sir. And proceed to Magnetheus. Our unworthy prey awaits. Oh, okay then. That's a bit weird way to say that. But anyway, back on Magnetheus, you'll notice the title bar of the game is just this lovely black thing with Space Quest 4. It doesn't even have the subtitle on it. And the font at the bottom of the screen here is different than everything else in the game. And as you can see, they were apparently going to have speech bubbles at one point. Right now, there's just a line going from the dialogue to the character, but I would imagine those are placeholders for speech bubbles, which they ended up not using after all. There's just text hovering next to the characters, which is just as well, I think. You'll also notice that Vohal's speech is significantly shorter. Yep, he just flaps his lips soundlessly, and that's about it. Roger just stands there and looks at a silent hologram, and then... no words, just heads off. Two guys jump two other guys, and he just picks a team. Off we scoot. And again, Roger Jr.'s explanation is a lot shorter. He just pumps a hole in the side here, and without thinking, without even asking questions, Roger just whoop, off he scoots. And as we arrive on the streets of Xenon, Roger does a merry little jig and nothing. No text boxes, no explanation, just into the game. So let's check out the control panel. Actually, let's save our game here because as this is a beta version, it is going to be buggy as hell. But let's just check out the about screen. We can do anything. We can do line draws. We can draw cells, all the stuff that could potentially make it look like a control panel. And they did nothing of the sort. And you'll notice the score is 0 out of 69. That score never goes up. And now we're just adjusting the detail and the volume. Oh, that is so much better. I feel good. Talk about a weight off your mind. The music is a lot more manageable now. Some of the look messages are here. You'll notice that sometimes there are look messages that have 2 asterisks at the beginning. Those indicate placeholder messages that are supposed to be filled in later. Maybe you'll also notice some placeholder lines that end up just being the final line altogether. But anyway, let's crack on with the game, shall we? I don't know if you saw on the last screen, but the icons are in the wrong order. It goes walk, look, nose, taste, hand, and mouth. Which is, oh, and it also sticks around when it's not wanted. And you'll also notice the weight cursor is the old Space Quest 3 gloved hand. It's not the hourglass anymore. Here, look, I'm gonna just get out our rope and put it on the ground. Check that out. Look, gloved hand. And of course, just as we come out of hiding, our good old friend, the Xenon cyborg, shows up and oh, he just wants a hug. The digitized Scream isn't quite there yet, but he is as adorable as ever, trust me. And here comes his friend, R2 Shit2. And, oh, what a lovely meeting. Look, dang, the death messages are just text boxes, none of those lovely little animated portraits, but yeah, I think we've had our fill of Xenon. Let's just fast forward a bit. Ah, the Xenon sewers. There's some interesting smell and taste messages here, and I'm not sure who they're referring to, but yeah. And our good old friend Mr. Slime has a slightly different look message. It's a little more descriptive. Dare you find out, indeed? And things stay pretty much the same until we head in and steal our first time pod. The I Love Lunacy Easter egg is just the standard look message now. And you'll also notice that the time pod keys are well, they're different. They're not as legible as they are in the disc version, but they're also not as legible as the illegible ones that were in the CD-ROM version. In fact, they just look quite awful altogether. And it also looks like there are 2 extra keys here at the bottom that are never used, and I clicked on them, nothing happened. So let's just do the standard thing that everyone does when they steal their first time pod and enter the secret Space Quest 3 Easter egg time code. You'll notice there was no revving of the quark cables or whatever the fuck it was, and we're just still in Space Quest 12, but the view provides a flashback to a recent adventure. So apparently the Easter egg is there, but there are no graphics for it, and you can't leave because your thermo underweave ran out of power. So apparently the whole melting on Ortega wasn't part of the Easter egg yet. But anyway, let's crack on and get to Estros. Not with that code, but maybe with the next one. Okay, so here we are on Estros, and there we go, off on the pterodactyl. You'll notice that here are some of the messages that have an asterisk at the start, or actually 3 of them, but they actually made it into the final game. So these were placeholder bits of messages that they just ended up going, you know what, these are actually pretty good. We'll just add a comma to that one. Also, notice the title bar still says Space Quest 12. We're not in Space Quest 10. We've just sort of time warped in the same game. I think that's a little oversight. But anyway, time for my 2 favorite messages in the game. The smell. Well, that was close to the original. And this one, please, this is a family-oriented game. Damn it. The whole take it from someone who knows sick message. Licking corpses is going way beyond simple dementia. It's a lovely, lovely line, but apparently wasn't quite in the game. It doesn't stop us from fondling a dead body, though, which is always great fun. Okay, let's move on a bit. Oh, I'm glad to see my other favorite message is still intact in this version. Okay, now check this out. Check this out. Look for any details that are missing. Look for something out of place. Have a look. Did you catch it? Here it is in a close-up. Okay, I'm just going to go out and say it. Zandra isn't wearing any boots all of a sudden. In fact, they just up and disappeared on her when we cut from her walking sprite to her standing sprite. In fact, here's the official disc version, and you'll see they've painted boots on her, and whoops, off they go. We're back to the beta, and well, let's just skip ahead a little bit. Here we are at the Galaxy Galleria Mall. Let's go and check out the crowd in front of the... Okay, there's no crowd. The crowd in front of the software store is gone. I'm actually just gonna check the debug here and see if they just forgot to add them in, and it would appear so. All the animated sprites show up in this little debug window, but there is no crowd here. And let's just have a look. It's not like they're just an invisible object in the room. They are simply not there. You can look at Roger. He's a space guy, but there's no crowd. And you can just walk right into the store. And the clerk has a merry little fit. His talking animation plays before his lines come on screen. And he does talk about the crowd having completely cleaned out his stock of Sierra software, but there was no crowd. Anyway, let's just turn around and walk out, since there is nothing for us to do in here right now. And, well, fuck you. We somehow gained pants, but lost a life. So, shoplifting. We didn't take anything, you abject assholes. All right. Okay, moving on, let's have a look at everyone's favorite pastime. Okay, Skaterama, cool. Okay, Sax is here and doing fine. I say doing fine, we'll get to that later. The arcade is still here. Have a look. Yes, the look messages are in Buckasoid Bills. That's awfully nice. And the next screen should be big and tall, so we can get some pants and get on with this adventure. So we can get on with this adventure. So we can, okay, so the game just hangs. It just absolutely flat out crashes when you try and go to the big and tall screen. You will never get to the screen. It completely freezes up the game. There's nothing to do. If you're playing this on an old DOS machine, you would have to reach for the power switch and just boot the game up again. And since we're playing this in DOSBox, we can just hit the nice little X in DOSBox and close the window and try again. Speaking of X's, have you noticed the title bar has now correctly identified the game as Space Quest 10? But no matter, we're just gonna have to quit the game forcibly and try something else. Okay, let's just boogie up to the Autobucks machine and just, you know, check the balance on the card. Let's see if we can solve that puzzle. He seems to be getting, oh, he's almost melted into the Autobucks teller machine. And here's the ATM card, which we can put into the machine. Oh, he gained his body back. Nice. Put that in there and... well, as predictably, identification test negative, but boom! Pants! suddenly pants. And the moving sprite is even more interesting. Roger's moving sprite now turns into a shooting sequel police officer, and will remain this until you'll see. But first, let's just go for a little joyride around the mall. Oh, it turns back into Roger again when you stand still, but it also turns into Roger with a severely misshapen head. Kind of looks like he has a second head going on there. But it's actually a good thing that that bug exists, because if you try and go into Monolith Burger with no pants on, you get booted out. No shirt, no shoes, no service, along with a friendly little message from a programmer that says, very, very gently, we need an animation of Roger standing up here. But we need to get into Monolith Burger because we need a job there, and to have a job there, we need to be wearing pants, and we can't get pants because the next screen over is big and tall, and that fucking craps out on you. However, if you were to enter Monolith Burger in your new fancy disguise, that actually counts as wearing pants. Oh, hey, we're back in Space Quest 12, by the way. Interestingly, you can't look at anything in here. You can only smell, and they didn't put in the lovely messages that we've come to expect about maybe it would be unwise to order a bacon burger, but you certainly can get a job here. Well, we'll start out by asking for some food, which we can't have because he got no food because I got no employees. And now we want a job. So you want a job? Well, okay. Gee, thanks. And off we scoot. No instructions. Well, kind of instructions. It just says placeholder instructions for this thing. And we're off to make some money. And as you'll see, I am, trying to use the mouse cursor, but quickly giving up because everyone knows the real way to play Burger Time here is to use the keyboard, because the keyboard auto snaps to the ingredients and to the conveyor belt, and that is the pro way of doing it. But I was a little taken aback with just how laggy the input was on this thing in the beta version. There is seriously like a 1 second lag, almost 2 seconds of lag actually, between what I hit on the keyboard and what happens on screen. And it's not that big of a problem now. I can adapt to it, but once the speed increases, that's an entirely different matter. Oh my fucking god. Yeah, this one is a lost cause, and I'll happily take that reject because at this point I've been playing it up to 64 buckasoids, and I've even used that little fake out where you go up and turn the speed down to next to nothing, which I have to say did not improve the input lag one fucking bit. And out sails Roger, this time wearing pants, and the Monolith Burger champ slowly saunters out. I'm just going to turn his speed up here. You're fired. Whoop-de-fucking-do. Bonks the cigar at me, and once again we get the helpful little message from the programmer who really, really, really wants an animation of Roger standing up. So now we actually have the dosh to go and have a look in the bargain bin, and as we can see, let's just get some of this shit out of the way. There are actually the 2 boxes that are missing from the released version. Dacron Dandy does Dirty Deeds in the Dark wearing drip dye duds, which was left out of the released version because of memory issues. Apparently the whole bargain bin here is just the most memory intensive part of the entire game. Under these boxes. And could you get out of the way, please? Come on, Jaime Lipschitz, get the fuck out of the way. Here we go. Stunt Flyer is another box that never made it into the final game. Interestingly, they are indeed voiced in the CD-ROM, so apparently they thought maybe they could get away with just one more box in the CD-ROM version. I have no idea. But anyway, the whole moving around the boxes was just an entire headache for the programming team, so they just decided to kill 2 of the boxes. They're still in the game's resource files, and we've known about them for a long time, but it's fun to see them in in the game itself. And of course, if you were playing Space Quest 4 with the new Rising Sun patch, he also added the missing boxes back into the game. But fun nonetheless. And this time, let's actually pay the clerk so he doesn't zap us for no good goddamn reason. But let's just have a look in our Space Quest 4 hint book. But where is the Hint-O-Magic hint revealer? It used to be its own inventory item, but it's not. And well, oh, you just click the hand icon on it and the hint revealer magically appears, which actually I kind of prefer this method, to be honest. I always thought it was weird. I never used to notice that the hint book gave you 2 inventory items, so I would click the hand icon on the hint book and get nothing out of it. But anyway, this is all part and parcel. Nothing exciting happens here until we head over here to buy our dress at Saks. And you know what? I'm just gonna give a quick trigger warning here. I don't usually do this, but I feel you should know that the original clerk of Saks was a bit, homophobic. Yeah, complete with, elongated S's, special somewhat. Oh god, this is some good old 90s cringe, isn't it? I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and excuse this. This is just appalling, but yeah, this was like the stereotype in the 90s. Homosexuality was still something you could make fun of, as was transphobia. We've all heard the fantastically unfunny sicko line that the final game came with, because Roger is apparently a sicko for wanting to wear women's clothes. And this is how the 90s were. I'm sorry, I just have no words. So anyway, moving hastily on. Let's just crack this fucking piggy bank from here till tomorrow. Oh, good God. Okay, well, Roger has now turned into a ghost, and his arms can't reach the ATM because he's physically inside of it. How badly does this work? Hang on, let's just clean house and then go for some spelunking in the 3rd and 4th and 5th dimension. Okay, clean house. We are now 2,001 buckasoids richer. Let's just see how far this rabbit hole goes. Oh dear God, it goes pretty far. I can just walk about anywhere. I can even exit the screen, but then things just sort of return back to normal. But I immediately exit back into the screen because the moving walkway is going in the wrong direction. This also works as regular Raj, who can also enter the software store now that it's closed by just clipping through it, and will of course be accused of shoplifting and get zapped to shit once again if he tries to leave. But let's just forego this whole debacle and hit the arcade. Let's just get in here and see if we can get some secret policemen to appear and... Well, the children seem to be phasing in and out of existence. This is, I don't think their parents will be happy to hear about this. In fact, that looks rather painful. Now, I did have a play of the Miss Astro Chicken machine. I am pleased and disgusted to say that it works just as well as it does in the final version, so no reason to go through that. It also doesn't smell very well. But here we go, time for some hefty skate-o-rama action. We got the secret police on our tail. We're supposed to go up into the dome, to the right, down to the other stairs, and then hang around and head back to the arcade. And it just sort of dawns on me at this point that I can't do that. I can't go down on this screen and then go to the stairs and then go all the way around, because then I would have to cross the Big and Tall store, and that store is broken. So what I do instead is I'm just gonna go back to the stairs that I came from and hope that no secret policemen show up. And honestly, I've never tried this in the original game, and I wasn't even sure if it was gonna work or if it just works in this beta version, but it worked. And at this point, I just can't believe I'm still alive, but here I am on the moving walkway, about to head into the arcade, and at any point, a secret policeman is just gonna pop. Sometimes there's even a policeman inside the arcade with gun ready, but nope, just the existence-defying children. And into the fucking time pod we go, and off we scoot to Space Quest 1. Nothing much new to report in the land of Space Quest 1, except these memory fragmented boxes keep popping up every time the scene changes. I love the fact that the ignore button is just called who cares. But anyway, the monochrome boys are who they are. The book of matches and the pick up the matches messages are placeholders, but were carried over into the final game. So here we get the close-up. Who cares? No memory fragmentation. Who gives a shit about that? Here we go. Let's boot Roger up the stairs. And here's a nice little detail that's not in the final version that I actually kind of appreciate, is you see Roger run behind Tiny's used spaceships there. You don't actually see that in the final version. He just, walks out after the monochrome boys have driven back. But let's get back into the bar now and nick those matches. A monochrome boy is supposed to come driving at us now, but apparently he's got more interesting things to do, so we can just waltz into the bar, no questions asked, and pick up the matches. Boom. And as we walk up to our time pod, we're supposed to get accosted by yet another monochrome boy, but he also appears to have better things to do with his time. So without any provocation, without any interference from the monochrome boys, we are now back in the time pod and ready to head back to Space Quest 12. And this is where the game really starts freaking out on you, because the droid is just an amazingly crap shot and has now seemed to have gotten himself stuck at the entrance. It's a security droid, yeah, but he's entirely harmless. He doesn't taste like anything either, and you can just sort of walk around him, which is good fun. Harmless little fun droid that he is. Oh, there he goes, sailing off into the distance. Bye. And this also means that reaching the inner sanctum of the supercomputer is a cinch, because the scary droid that's supposed to be guarding it is not that scary anymore. Here I am trying to plug the Pocket Pal into the laptop terminal here, but it's not working because, well, for one, the Radio Shack store at the Galaxy Galleria is just bugged up the ass. You can't actually buy anything from the store, and even if you somehow get a plug out of the debug mode, which is entirely possible, it invariably produces the wrong plug for the laptop. So we never get to see Vohal's fantastic message to Roger about his son. So I can't check if that's actually also voiced in the beta. It was voiced in the disc version, interestingly, but no such luck here. Let's just head into the inner sanctum. Stop fiddling with the fucking Pocket Pal and just head on into the inner sanctum. There you go. Good boy. And once we get the, yes, memory fragmented, who cares? Once we get into the inner sanctum itself, you'll notice Leisure Suit Larry is missing, but in its place is Stunt Flyer, which surprised the hell out of me. It also doesn't have a look message. In fact, I think it is trying to look at Ego, which would be Roger himself, and this little ha-ha prank from one of the programmers popped up. Very funny. So anyway, let's flush the big bad supercomputer brain and memory fragmented. Who cares? We've got a universe to save. Let's just, yeah. Okay, so now I'm trying to trigger that same haha message from one of the programmers and can't do it. But no time for this. We've got to hustle. We've got to move. We've got a sun to save and a universe, and what we can't leave. Are you fucking kidding me? No, I'm serious. I'm serious. The exit hotspot for this area doesn't work, and there's just nothing to do. We're just stuck in this room until the format countdown goes to 0, which of course will not stand. So it is time to reach for the debug once again and just teleport to the last room of the game, which I think I'll just let play out in silence without my commentary, because it really just is a sight to behold, the dialogue in particular. And after that riveting amount of trash talk, we're supposed to go down the ladder to get the floppy disk, but the ladder doesn't work, and all we can do is just basically shove ourselves off the edge of the platform here. So once again, we're gonna have to go into, oh god, this is pretty far back. Here we go. We're just going to hit that special hotkey that lets us get any object in the game. We now have the diskette, and we are going to, well, we're going to look at it, and then we're going to select it. We're going to select it. We're going to select, can we select the diskette, please? Can we do something? No? Okay, so the diskette does not work. It doesn't actually work, but I can use the console anyway. And even though there's no diskette in it, just any button I hit will automatically engage the end game sequence. And hi dad, let's go somewhere near a dangerous, mind-boggling drop to certain death and exchange insults about each other's looks. Which is what they do. Good God, that was emotional. And without a further word, we just shove ourselves into the time warp, and Roger is off to, I don't know, have another beer. It just goes the end, and it's a game. Well, they're right about that, and it gives you a death screen, and you can just quit. There are no end credits. You can just quit the game. So that's the beta of Space Quest 4. What a sight to behold. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this look at Space Quest 4 before it was ready for its primetime spotlight. I think it's really interesting to see a Sierra game before it gets shoved out the door. The missing art assets, the placeholder dialogue that needs to be rewritten, or is just kept because who has time to rewrite all those messages? But I really do have to give a massive shout out to Akril from the old SpaceQuest.net forums. She has a fantastic website that outlines all of these differences between the betas and the official releases. Did I say betas plural? Yes, I think I did, because as luck would have it, Space Quest 5 also was released as this unfinished beta. So guess what we're doing next, kids? Anyway, until next time, I'll see you around the Chrono Stream.